All right, Tetsuo. It's finally your turn.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm 100. No, it's my turn now. No, it's your turn.
No.
No, it's all you, bud.
No, so I was talking with a buddy of mine about different RPGs and how some of the games are set up in the rule structures. I mean, it's kind of, whenever you're discussing RPGs in general. But I thought it was interesting. We noted how, like, some systems like Pathfinder, D&D, most of their splat books will be more classes, more items, more spells. Yeah, sometimes you get new setting areas, but it's kind of like, here's a new setting, so that way we can give you more spells, more items, more races. Right? Like, but other games like Fate, and I think it's been pretty clear how much of a Fate fan I am, a lot of their books are totally setting new books that introduce new mechanics, not just like new classes, but like straight up full-on mechanics. And we were just kind of discussing how interesting that was to us, how like some go one way, some go the other. And I was just curious for you guys, if you guys thought that there was anything that particularly like how to word this.
What was your essay question from earlier?
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't remember how I freaking worded it. We were discussing our topics. I worded something, and Bob said it sounded like an essay question. No, but
discuss the merits of setting-based mechanics in tabletop RPG.
No. Is that how I said it?
Or why did Tets have to die?
Oh yeah, why did Tets have to die? That's actually my true subject.
That's the true topic today.
No, but yeah, like if you guys think that there is any merit in having mechanics based off of the setting itself, or if you think that it is better to just use setting as a reason to build more on giving more options. Like should setting be a doorway for more options, or should it have its own mechanics? And is it always true one way or the other, or is sometimes it better to go one way or the
other? That's actually a good question.
Put on your game design glasses.
Yeah, right. Hold on, let me just.
Yeah, this is very much a game design question.
Game design question. Designer. Oh, yep. Just gonna. Yep. Okay. And all right, game design glasses are gone.
Oh God.
Yeah.
I don't know. If I had to give like an example, because I'm not sure I fully understand your classification. But
yeah, I may be discussing something that's mostly in my head.
If I would have to say the way I go, I would lean more towards the setting isn't like the setting can be utilized. I guess like for at least the way you're putting it in the question, at least with options given, I would say that I prefer the setting kind of just being there to help give mechanics for a game. Though I don't even think you really need a setting for that to do that.
Right. So I guess maybe to give a better example, kind of where my thought process is, in the case of D&D, we have like books for Eberron, we have books for Forgotten Realms, which introduce these new areas, but they kind of introduce, Warforged, or here are more things for Drow to do, or, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
Whereas with Fate, we have things like Mecha versus Kaiju, which totally bolts on new stuff to Fate, or Tianxia, which bolts on new stuff to Fate, just because you're now playing Wushu or Mecha.
Okay, I kind of see what you're saying. And that's really hard. I almost don't know if it's in.
Yeah. So Fate is already fairly light.
Yeah.
So adding more onto it isn't going to overwhelm someone as much. So that's probably why it would be more common. Even Pathfinder rarely will do a book devoted to running an entire campaign in water and all the mechanics that, have that. If, here is everything you need to just be completely underwater in a game.
Right.
Yeah.
Which add a lot of, mechanics in all shapes and sizes, classes, races, and other mechanics outside of those.
I think generally, if you're going to do that kind of book, I mean, it's an interesting way to do a book. I think it's just one of the approaches. if I were to make a, I guess in my eye, I would probably prefer more. I would generally prefer a game that's more focused about giving new mechanics, new toys to play with, so to speak, than worrying so much about the world and how to make you possible for you to do something in a setting or a world. Because if you're an event, if your GM is being a good GM, they'll provide you what you need, even if there's no book for it.
Right.
So I'd rather get a book that's more of just going to like essentially spot weld on a lot more things that I can play with, and if it happens to work in that environment, that's sweet. If not, that's fine too. But I'd rather just have more toys to play with, as opposed to a book that explains to me like, here's all these cool toys that you can specifically do in space or underwater or under the earth or stuff like that. That wouldn't be as interesting to me because it's really just focused on that area. And if you want to make like a theme set of books around it, that's not too bad. But you are spending like a lot of money to make theme books to work under the idea that you're going to be going into this kind of area. So here's all the stuff that you could do and not that it's a bad idea, but if I had to choose, I would take one that's just like, here's these cool new classes, here's some cool new treasures, here's new abilities and choices and options you can take to build your characters, both new and old, and let's roll with that. That's something that would be far more interesting to me. So I would definitely say less creating a book that adds like an environment and rules for that environment, and more a book that just uses what's currently there, gives you tons of more toys to play with, and then if you want, you can come up with ideas to play in that new environment.
Okay, makes sense.
I'd like both. Give me both.
Give me the best of both worlds.
Yeah, it's weird because I think Fate does it the best I've seen with like new setting stuff and new mechanics squished into books. That's just by necessity more than anything. I think. Like they don't even necessarily have to do like new mechanics, but then if you just get like a new setting for Fate, there's no new mechanics, you probably feel like you're not getting a lot.
Right.
You're just reading about someone's setting they made up.
Just a fluff book.
Yeah, exactly. But
not.
Well, like in the case of Tianxia and Mecha vs. Kaiju, which I mentioned earlier, they just kind of bring, like, Tianxia brings in the wushu aspect, the martial arts. But theoretically, you could divorce all of the rest of it from the book, and this is just the book of martial arts. And then it just becomes character options, right? It's not really necessarily mechanics. Mecha vs. Kaiju, same thing with robots.
Actually, every Pathfinder splat book is themed, or has its own theme.
Right.
And that you could also divorce from the fluff.
Right.
I mean, I think if you really take any book, let's just use because it's a good example, a very lore dense, world dense game, L5R. You could still divorce like all the schools and the clans and whatnot from the game itself, and to make your own thing. You don't have to use.
Well, I like what L5R tries to do with alternate universe stuff, and they'll give you like a new school or a new like path. I just wish they gave you a little bit more. Of them.
They a lot of their books, unfortunately,
advantages.
A lot of their books, and for the 4th edition,
4E books were
This is like a personal pet peeve for me. I love the game, but again, there's a lot of things I don't like about it. A lot of the books from 4th edition were almost exclusively
the element books.
Yeah, element books were a big sin of this too. The Emerald Empire is literally a book about the fucking Empire.
Though it is one of my more favorite books.
It is still, it is still one of my more favorite books. Absolutely.
Emerald Empire is fine.
I think it's a great book for what it is. But in this example,
all of the fluff.
Yeah, there you go.
Weirdly enough, the Enemies of Rokugan book gives you more different character options than any other splat book in the game.
Yes, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. This game is great for building the world it's in, but when you get the books for options to play with, you are decidingly small in the amount of choices you can make. It's actually very frustrating on an immense scale at times. If you were to pick up, and not to pick on the Kakita Bushi, but here I go. If you were to pick up a Kakita Bushi, there are only 2 alternate paths you can take with them. That kind of sucks that like there's only 2 option choices you can take with them that are specifically
multiple schools, my man.
Yeah, right. Just get a new school. There you go. Problem solved.
Buy Yushi, now I'm super fast.
So I mean, that's kind of thing. And like they had, I don't know, they had a string of, I want to say more than, I have to say there's probably about 12 to 15, anywhere from 10 to 18 books in the 4th edition, and there is very little actual mechanical content, toys to play with, and I that goes into the very exact opposite. Love the game, love the world, I love what they're trying to do with it, and there's good books. Emerald Empire, wonderful book.
Hey, the Doji Iron Warriors have 7.
Oh, I know, right? It's okay, they're good.
Crane family, obviously, gets the
obviously best Crane family, yeah. Yeah, it's that's what it is, but that will be the exact opposite of what I.
Which is weird because first edition L5R had all kinds of weird, like it had different skills you could take that would do the same thing but work slightly differently. Like there was investigation for like the lower class. It was called Kuanai, I believe, where you could like get more different kinds of information. It was weird. You got all kinds of weird different character options in first edition, and it had a lot more splat books. Something they should have done in 4th edition. I probably said this on the podcast before. I wish they would have done clan books like they did in 1st edition for 4th edition, where they could have just took all the lore, because if you want to have all the L5R books, at a certain point later on, like years after 4th edition was out, it became increasingly hard to get them because they just became so expensive because they went out of print. Like the 4th edition book, I think, is like $150 or something right now to get a hold of one. But I mean, so they're expensive books, hard books to get a hold of, and they have different mechanics spread throughout all of them. What they should have done, in my opinion, was like compress some of the lore, take all of like the alternate paths and like advanced schools and kata and stuff that clan has access to, put them in a clan book. Like there's something like RPGs from the 90s and early 2000s did a lot, like the White Wolf games and stuff. Like your faction would have a book, because there's people always want to play like the crab guy every time, like or the scorpion, and the scorpion player can buy the scorpion book and have all the scorpion lore, the scorpion advantages and disads and schools and stuff like that all in one go-to place. They could have sold those for $40, and I would have bought every single one of those. That would have been awesome, and they could have put more new stuff in it, and I wish that was something they would have done, but
that would have been really cool. I would have loved, actually, I think, like, almost going off of what you said, I would have loved if they made a book just like Way of the Crane or Way of the Dragon, stuff like that, like a Way of series book, where it was literally
that's what
just
they did in first edition.
Where it was all just mechanical, though. Just all mechanical stuff. It wasn't about fluffing the world. It wasn't about adding anything to the clan. It was like, this is the way of the book. You are reading the book that has like all their techniques and abilities for this clan just laid out. And then all this new stuff added in as well. That would have been a really cool series set of books, because then you've been like, if you want to look at everything from the clan that you were playing under, here's your book. Bam, done. That would have been a really cool idea.
Ultimately, for me, I want as many character options as I can make. Forget. That's what I want in every game I play. The more, the better.
I agree with that. I love character options.
It's a very popular thought process, or not thought process, position to take.
As far as like when something gets a setting book, it ultimately comes down to, you know, if the demand's there for it, because you could make a setting book for anything, but is it going to sell, or does someone have, like in the case of Final Fantasy D20, does someone have, you know, the drive to do it?
Yeah.
Or I mean, Final Fantasy Fate, was it Fate 14, also as a player made?
Yep, player made variation on the Fate system for Final Fantasy 14.
I don't know, like, I like options. I think part of the reason why I am not as keen on D&D and Pathfinder is sometimes it feels like there's too many options. And sometimes I like just having big mechanical things that everybody has access to just automatically baked in for a new book.
I can understand that.
Which again, so I know talking with those other two splats, but then you going on to two other for Fate, Atomic Robo and Gods and Monsters. Those are two other Fate settings. In Atomic Robo, they introduced this idea called brainstorming, which allows players to make rolls together to try to come up with conclusions and ideas and create advantages and stuff, kind of as a bigger and better helping each other mechanic type deal, which is really cool. And then Gods and Monsters, you play literal gods that gets their power from people's worship. So they have this whole worship mechanic that starts going in there. And if you use too much power, you'll become a monster and the other gods will start attacking you and all this stuff. So I guess for me, I kind of like when you make these big sweeping mechanical bolted on additions as opposed to more character options. I think that's more kind of where I was.
I mean, that's one way to definitely do it. I can see that being
But I think
an appeal.
both are good. I think both are definitely good to have.
There you go. Well, I stand by my answer. I love toys to play with. New abilities. I love new magic items. I love it all so much. I think it just helps spice up a game because I mean, with any jump on here real fast. With any setting, you can tell a great story. Okay, and sure, you could argue that you can make any magical item, but it's really nice to have a book of the category. Not in Fatal.
We're just gonna go right past that.
Yeah, I'm gonna ignore that right now.
If you wanted to have talked about it, you should have talked about that last subject. Obs.
Yeah, guilty pleasures, totally. Fatal. I've made so many Fatal characters. It's weird. I'm interested in the design process because it seems like I wonder how people try to fight the urge to make stuff more tied to the setting mechanically. Because a lot of people don't, obviously. It makes sense, marketing wise. You want people to buy your stuff so they can play with these mechanics in any game and stuff. But I wonder if, how much of I don't even want to say temptation because that implies that it's, forbidden or something or verboten, but they really want to, tie the mechanics and the setting together, just from a design philosophy space. I wonder, I can't think of a real example of that where it's you literally cannot pull this from this setting and put it in any of the generic. I'm trying to think of a D&D example. I can't think of one.
I don't think D&D. Well, D&D is gonna be super hard because D&D was designed specifically around being setting neutral. That's why they choose the names they choose and the options they choose because you could put them in any setting that you want.
I mean, I think if you work hard enough, you can reflavor anything.
Yeah. Well, and actually, that was going to be my next point. Is I think that's sometimes too where it comes down to is that do you say you could flavor this to do anything you want, or do you put out a book to help people so that way the players and the GM don't have to work as much.
Right. Yeah.
And again, I think that's a design standpoint, for your particular team, one way or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, tons of people don't want to actually put in all that work because, there's balance issues and whatnot that they would have to.
Yeah.
I know some people love playing only or running only modules because it's easier to do it. Somebody's already made it up and, having all the material in one place, it's just, I don't have to worry about anything. Therefore it's easier to run, mentality.
Yeah. And it makes sense. Sometimes you just don't want to make up everything. Sometimes you just want somebody hey, here's it all it is.
As you say, you can be terrified of breaking the balance because it's very easy to break balance once you start home rolling.
God knows I have run into this so much while working on our stuff. Both homebrew things. Just
flying carpets.
Yeah.
Stunning stuff.
Stunning everything.
Flying around. Casting earthquake. Stunning everybody, doing 8k damage.
Most people don't really want to balance things, and AEG didn't either.
I will agree there. AEG was
damn, Mao.
Fun? Wow.
Damn.
You're not wrong though. That is unfortunately something coming from AEG. Woof. That's
Get the zingers in.
A sassy Mao.
All right.
Drop.
Yeah, we'll let Mao have his mic drop there.